mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the United Ones podcast, episode number 86. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESP analyst, and hoops player, a infamous rapper, our resident influencer, and an IG star shooting the breeze talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle. We'll be bringing back the Big 12 Huddle soon, so make sure you keep your eye out for that. And this week, we're going to be talking a lot. There's a lot of good news that came out this week and interesting news that came out this week as well. We had some information about Coach Scott Frost and his journey here to UCF or back to UCF. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about some folks that are leaving to go elsewhere. We're going to be talking about some folks that are coming back to UCF or coming on board to UCF, a new QB recruit in Kane Archer, who we're all super excited about. And Alan will tell us a little bit about that. We'll talk about the NFL draft because we do have an update there and some contract details along with tennis, softball, and a bunch of other great things that are going on at UCF Sports this week. So, unfortunately, we want to give a quick shout out to Nobra. On those of us that have ever been dog parents, unfortunately, he lost his puppy today, so he won't be joining us. He normally produces the show, but just a quick shout out to him because it's really, really difficult to lose a pet. And we at the United Ones family obviously want to let him know that we're thinking about him. So, without further ado, though, let's go ahead and bring some positivity to the stage. I'm going to start with bringing our resident IG influencer to the stage, Alan Levin. Welcome to the show, sir.
What's going on? How's it going?
It's going well, man. I'm excited to talk to you about a lot of these new guys that are coming in and out because I do think we've got some good guys coming in. It's kind of upsetting to lose a few of these guys. We talked about who we were okay with losing last week and who we weren't.
Yep.
I think we need to have that conversation again. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get your patented hair flip in. There it is. All right. So as a reminder, folks, once we hit 1,000 followers, Alan Levin will be cutting those lovely locks that he's spent years growing. And, we're excited to do that. So make sure you tell your friends. Josh Lazar will be joining us here shortly. Last but not least, he had to restart his computer because it was freezing. So let's go ahead and get into it. And talk a little bit about the two Knights who are leaving us and who have entered the portal this week. So, Alan, can you tell us a little bit about who's leaving?
Yeah, obviously one we're all very familiar with, and that's defensive back Chasen Johnson. I mean, I think it was Bleacher Report put out a post the other day of his short college football history to date. While I was in high school, he committed to Pitt and decommitted from Pitt. He committed to USC, decommitted from USC. The list goes on. And then obviously, when Coach Malzahn left, Coach Chasen decommitted, had flirted with USC, looked like he was gone. Apparently big bags were being thrown at him. But then to everyone's happiness, it was announced he was staying. He was going to stay. He was here throughout most of spring, and then it looked like we had saved him through this, most recent portal window, yet he ultimately left for USC like he was supposed to do, I guess, 5-6 months ago. So apparently the numbers being thrown out there and saying that he got, potentially $1 million plus to go there. They were in need of depth in the secondary. So he left, and we know he was by far, at least on defense, UCF's most promising freshman last year on defense. So to think we kept him after not thinking we kept him to now losing him. But he ultimately commits to USC. So that's the world we live in now. I'm a little confused because I thought once the window closes, which it did, you couldn't leave, but it doesn't seem like the rules really apply to anything. So he's out, unfortunately. And that's a big loss for our secondary, despite, obviously having a bunch of guys that transferred in over the past 5 months. But he was one of the most promising guys for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the portal, just so everybody knows, there's portal windows, right? So you have to enter the portal by a certain date. And after that date, you can no longer enter your name into the portal. But if your name is already in the portal, you're still free to transfer as long as you hit the cutoff window for the portal. That's why you saw a lot of guys last week. We kind of talked about it. Got into the portal late is because they wanted that opportunity to be able to be picked up. Yeah, I'm really... we picked up a ton of DBs. We talked about that last week, right? So it was like, 15, 16 DBs that we brought in.
Between high school and college, yeah, there's been a lot over the past even just year.
Yeah, but he was a guy I was really excited about and hoping to keep within the fold. SMU, I don't know if you remember from his recruiting.
Them too.
Yeah, SMU came in and offered him a bag, and he ended up staying with UCF. This is part of that process. You turn over coaches. That's what's going to end up happening. We do have some exciting news about the rev share that I'm going to share a little bit later on that should perk us up. But yeah, this is a big loss, and it sucks to lose him, but it may be one of those guys that swings back around again. I don't know if it'll be at UCF, but I wouldn't doubt if he was back in the portal at some time soon. All right. Next, you have Grant Reddick. So tell us a little bit about Grant Reddick.
It's a little bit of surprise. I didn't even know he was someone that was going to be expected or thought. I mean, he obviously was the kind of lame duck starter going into next year. I mean, he was solid in the game that he played last year. We know he didn't seem to have a huge leg. He was pretty good with the shorter field goals, but as you know, Coach Frost was always going to bring in competition for the place kicking role because there was really no one else once Colton Boomer entered the portal. But it seems apparently that there was some struggling from what I've heard from Reddick. Obviously, we brought in that guy from James Madison to, I guess ultimately come in, and it would appear that he would have just by, default here by Grant Reddick transferring. It does look like he was beaten out or looked like he was going to be beat out, or I don't see why he would transfer. So Grant Reddick, a little bit of a surprise there. I mean, he got the starting gig, 4 or 5 games into last year, and was obviously the guy that appeared to be going, have the inside track to be the starter in 2025. But ultimately it seems like he was beat out, and we are going to be using the transfer kicker that we landed from James Madison.
Yeah, the big thing coming out of camp, some of the folks we know that went to camp, and also some of the folks that went into the spring break, they saw that he wasn't doing too well when it came to the kicking game, and was missing a lot of these kicks, and we weren't excited. We were talking about that. We were a little afraid, and we expected them to bring other kicking competition in. I'm just glad. Honestly, I think this may be addition by subtraction. I don't have anything against Grant Reddick, but it didn't seem like he was going to be the guy for us coming out of spring. So it's kind of expected to me. And I think we've got enough horses in the stable, so to speak, to weather the storm, because I don't think we were going to be doing much kicking with Grant Reddick at the helm. Let's go ahead and talk about other people that are in and out of portals. Last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar. So you were in and out of the technology portal right as we started. I was all by my own for a minute.
Yeah, it was doing some more research and stuff, and yeah, it was not great. I can't. Wasn't great. But you know what? I'm going to make sure my microphone's on the right microphone now that I'm back in. Bluetooth isn't working, but it does not matter. We're going to talk amazing UCF sports, including tennis, rowing, and softball. So,
all right. So coxswain karaoke again. All right. So before we
do it
past that riveting point, Let's go ahead. Alan, why don't you tell us a little bit more about where some of our other players landed recently that have entered the portal?
So seems to be a rash of guys that finally announced, from the first couple of weeks we hadn't really heard anything, but now we are starting to see it. So, we talked about the guys that we were most upset losing, and you could clearly see they went to the best schools. We just said Chase and Johnson, or, at least the best schools on this list by far. Chase and Johnson, obviously, like we said, committed to USC. Andrew Harris, the linebacker we talked about being upset losing, committed to Arkansas. Obviously, he has a little bit of history with their defensive coordinator, but still, you could see some of our better guys obviously went to the SEC, the Big Ten, the two, most powerful conferences. So Andrew Harris went to Arkansas. The other big one to note, Walt Clariflin Jr. went to Georgia. So, you talk about the three biggest recruits we were upset losing. And I guess if you want to throw, obviously Dylan Risk in there. We already talked about him last week, committing to Stanford. But
I'm not upset. I'm happy for him. Let's just put it.
Yeah, no, not upset. Just saying the biggest kind of names that we lost all committed to the best schools on this list. But outside of those guys, then you had Elijah Brown, who call him our tight end for 3 months, but he's had an extensive transfer history: Alabama, FAU, UCF. Now he's transferring to Kentucky. Cedric Hawkins is going to our directionally challenged enemies in the West over there to USF.
Yes, you almost got it. You're almost there, Alan. But yes, the Cows.
The Cows. Then Kason Stokes transferred to Middle Tennessee State. Marcus Downs went to Georgia Southern. Traquan Fagans went to Jacksonville State, and then Brandon Jacobs went to Texas San Antonio. So for the most part, a lot of these guys are transferring to group of fours outside of really the three biggest names we didn't want to lose. Either went to the Big Ten or the SEC.
Yeah, at Arkansas, Andrew Harris hurts. Like I get it. Like he's been through his second coaching stint here, and defensive coordinators have been on a roll. He been through 2 defensive coordinators now since he was recruited? So I get it. Yeah, I get it, but I hate it at the same time. I still think I'm quite amused to see what Cedric Hawkins does for the Cows if he'll actually land a starting job there. All the potential in the world, but for whatever reason, he's just not working out anywhere. Walt Clariflin to Georgia. Obviously, they threw a bag at him. I'm a little upset about that one. However, we did land 2 more new transfers that we're bringing into the fold. So tell us a little bit about the new Knights that transferred in.
Yeah, so first one is linebacker Jade McDonald, guy that came over from Virginia Tech. And I like transfers like this. He's been his whole career at Virginia Tech, so he's not like a 2, 3, 4 time transfer like you see now. So he's kind of an OG transfer, if you will. Been there for 4 years. Has been semi-productive. Been a little bit more of, I would say, a reserve for them. His stats aren't super flashy, but he has played a role. He's played in 25 games over the past 4 years, and 2 of those were really broken up by injuries. I think it was last year he only played in 2 games the whole season and had to medically redshirt. He's also redshirted his freshman year. So despite playing in 4 years, he essentially missed 2 entire seasons. So he actually has 2 years of eligibility remaining between the medical and the regular redshirt. So he's a linebacker, which we know we need. Our 5th linebacker transfer. He was a 3-star guy in high school, and also is considered a 3-star transfer. So I guess he is, fairly valued in the transfer market. Stands at 6'4", 232 pounds, originally from Virginia. Didn't have a lot of offers. It was mostly, smaller schools in Virginia, like Old Dominion, and but they did have the offer from Virginia Tech, which obviously is where he committed to. So I think overall seems to be a fairly productive player, more of a depth guy, a guy that was in a reserve role mostly at Virginia Tech. And also of note, he is the 3rd transfer from Virginia Tech of this cycle, joining Davey Belfort, who obviously recently joined this class, and then Kelly Lawson, who was in the fall portal with us.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm actually excited about him. 6'4", 232 pounds. That's a P5 linebacker. Love to see him get to 240 pounds, but 6'4" is a good frame. He can put on a little bit of muscle mass there as well. Like you said, for me, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is you've got people that are hungry and that want to stick around. The fact that he's got 2 years left, on his eligibility is also a giant plus for me as well. We want guys that we can bring on that can get used to the system, especially when we're talking about the linebacker position, because you have to learn the system that you're in, and you also have to help command the defense. So I'm excited about him. It gives him a fall to get up to speed. He's got some experience already. He's got some playing time already at the P5 level. And so I'm excited for all of that. But I'm more excited that he can be here for 2 years. So, I mean, in this day and age of the portal, who knows if he will be here for 2 years, but it'll be interesting to see that as well. And let's talk a little bit about tight end Max Drag a little bit from App State. I don't know if he's going to be doing a drag route or what.
I love that name. I mean, he has to. He has to. Like, make a quick little L and run right across everyone. Has to do that. It's in his name.
Yeah, at 6'4", 245. Yeah, he's got the leg to do it. All right,
yeah, I mean, this is obviously a depth play. This is a clear response from Elijah Brown transferring out. Elijah Brown was widely expected to be a depth guy, was not in the top 2, on the depth chart. Obviously, we know, there's a good chance that he was not, he was not going to start there. So this feels like a direct response, getting in Max Drag. This is a guy that literally has one career catch in college, and it did happen to be a touchdown, though. He has one catch for 11 yards. It is a touchdown. Mostly played on special teams.
Alan, was it on a drag route?
Actually, I don't know. That would be great info to have. I'd have to find that video.
Come on, man! How did you miss that opportunity?
Yeah, I know. I you know what? I did not put 2 and 2 together. I definitely should have looked at that. But he's mostly been a blocker for App State as well as played on special teams. So I think that's what he'll do ultimately at UCF. But 6'4", 245 pounds, originally from South Carolina. Literally only had one offer out of high school, which was App State, but still was considered, a 3-star prospect, was the number 41 overall player in South Carolina out of high school, but that did not materialize into really any other FBS offers. He had one other from Presbyterian, and that was it. And I think, as of now, we know that the favorites at tight end are most likely Dylan Wade as 1 and Kylan Fox as 2. So this definitely feels, like I said, a response to the recent tight end that we had transfer out there. So we'll see how he does, but solid depth nonetheless.
So how long? What is he? What is he? A sophomore or a junior?
He is a rising junior, I believe. So he's had 2, if I recall correctly, 2 years of FBS, and he redshirted one of them. So he actually might be more of a redshirt sophomore. So he has a good amount of time left.
That's interesting. Why did you say a rising junior?
Oh, what I was gonna.
Well, rising junior meaning like that's what he's going to be next year. Like if you're still in the year, I guess you're like,
yeah. This is a new term. I wasn't gonna.
That's not new. I've heard that for years. I've used that for like
it's been illegal for a long time, and it was not fun then.
It's been illegal, you said?
Yeah, a rising 2L, right? You're just 1L that's in the middle of the summer. And the only reason I'm going to get off this point in a second, I had a conversation about the term rising when it comes to people in between semesters with a couple of parents in the last week, and all of us thought it was stupid. Now it's
just a term that's out there. I didn't make it up.
You're not wrong. And the Knicks take game 1. Sorry,
all right. So, are you off your soapbox now, Josh?
Yes, I'm off my soapbox. The Islanders got the number 1 NHL draft pick, and the Knicks just beat the Celtics.
All right. Nobody cares about New York. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. This is a UCF show. So now it depends. Yeah. Okay. From UCF now has 10 spring transfers and 38 total in the 2025 cycle. That is crazy. And that he's our second tight end transfer. So now that we've talked about the transfers, both in and out, let's talk about who's coming in from high school. So we're really excited, or at least I am, about Kane Archer. Tell me a little bit about Kane Archer, and then we'll give some thoughts on our end too, Alan.
Yeah, this has been Coach Frost's top QB target essentially since he got on campus here a second time. This is someone's name that's been thrown around quite a bit around UCF circles. We knew that UCF, I believe SMU and Utah, and I think randomly UNLV were his top 4 schools, or maybe it was Arkansas State. Actually, I'm sorry, it was Arkansas State, I think. But we had said, there had been said that he was really interested for UCF. Had liked what he heard from Frost and felt a bond there, and it was looking good, but he made it official, and it's a big pickup for UCF. 6'1", 205 pounds. He's a top 10 player in all of Arkansas, comes out of Greenwood High. He's had a magnificent high school career. He's won back-to-back state championships at Greenwood. He has something like, I think it's like 2 interceptions over the last 2 years, maybe 3, but had 33 touchdowns last year. Ran for an additional almost 700 yards and another 16 scores on the ground. So he's a dual threat guy. And like I said, won back-to-back state championships. So he's a winner. One of the top guys really in the nation when you consider he's top 600 overall, number 34 rated quarterback. He's got a heck of an arm, and he's obviously can get it done on the ground with his feet. Over 2 years now, he has 23 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 years. So, I think a great fit in Frost's system. Also had a ton of Power 4 offers. I think it was over about 20 offers there. Arkansas, SMU, Tennessee, which I always look for Tennessee because Josh Heupel knows how to evaluate quarterbacks. So if he got an offer from Tennessee, I think that's a good thing. Texas A&M, Utah, Mizzou, Michigan, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida State, all offered. So ultimately he chose UCF, but as we know, 2026 is a long way away. So let's pump the brakes and see if we actually land him, but definitely the biggest verbal commitment of the 2026 class to date.
I will say this. If he was 2 inches taller, he'd be a 4-star quarterback and be there.
He almost is already a 4-star quarterback.
Well, I know that. And he's still got his senior year to go, right? We haven't seen his senior year, right? He's a championship winning quarterback. He's won 2 state championships. At home. Mackenzie Milton actually, what's crazy is I think everybody else started catching on once we offered. Mackenzie Milton went down there and was in there in January as soon as he came on board to UCF. This was a guy that he had his eye on in Tennessee when he was doing evaluation, when he was at Tennessee as an analyst. And, it's funny that the conversation between the two of them, there was an interview that was done recently where they talked about him not knowing who KZ was, right? But KZ saying, hey, we played alike, and he went back and watched the tape, and then they really do. What's impressive to me is his accuracy. He seems to have a pretty good arm on him, and he knows where to go with the football, which is one of the problems that we've had with our QBs lately, is that anticipation and being able to find where to go with the football before the defense has time to adjust. So I think those are all good things. He's 6'1", 205, so he's obviously a little bit bigger than KZ, has a little bit more weight as a junior. He's probably going to put 5 or 10 more pounds. He may even put an inch or 2 on height-wise in his senior year in high school. A lot of these guys continue to grow once they get to that height. And, being in Greenwood, Arkansas, he's not exactly on the national radar when it comes to programs. So that kind of worked in our favor as well. But this was a guy we got on quote unquote early versus everybody else. And I think that's paying dividends. And it seems like he was really excited to get the offer, and KZ stayed on him, pretty much the whole time. So I think from a relationship perspective, that puts us in a really, really good position when it comes to that. So, sorry, I was just reading the private chat. Josh was saying Newark is always a no-no. Yeah, whatever. All right, so back to Kane Archer. I think to your point, Alan, if we can hold on to him, and he seems like a kid, especially where he's from. I've been to Arkansas quite a bit for work, and folks down there, they tend to be pretty loyal. So unless maybe Arkansas came in, I don't know what his thoughts are on Arkansas as the hometown team, maybe jumping in and offering a bag. I think we're in pretty good shape with him because I know that he knows that he's our number one target. So interesting stuff and good to get him early on. And I think he will be rising up the rankings a little bit more, especially as he goes into his senior year, because he's already a junior and ranked the number 34 quarterback in the country. So we'll see how that goes. Josh, did you have anything to add to the thing other than New York sports? Because we don't want to hear about New York sports. Sorry.
Listen, we don't get a lot of good things going on here. Here's what I'm interested in. He will hopefully, let's just say he stays committed through the end of the year. He will not only see what was in the past with Frost and what he's trying to do, he'll also see where we're going in the future. Honestly, we'll all see what's going on in the future, right? Because this is not going to be the same as 2017 and 18 but maybe similar. And seeing KZ and what he was able to do, seeing those numbers, and then see what we could do in the Big 12 should be all the proof in the pudding. You can get, you can get drafted pretty decently from the Big 12 as well. I'm not going to go there, but you can get drafted pretty decently from the Big 12 as a quarterback, and you could do pretty well in the NFL as a former UCF quarterback or a former Big 12 quarterback. So it's all out there. And I think, to your point, I think if he sticks around and someone from Arkansas doesn't throw a ridiculous bag at him or others, I think he'll have a lot of opportunity here. I actually think a lot of the offensive players will have more opportunity, amazingly enough, in this system than maybe even Gus, minus RJ. RJ got what he deserved, but still, I'm excited for all this. It's an exciting time. Let's see what we think in about 3 years.
All right, awesome. It looks like our producer had a note there.
Oh, yeah. You're producing. If Nober was on here, he'd be with me.
Yeah. Well, thankfully Nober is not. So
yeah.
Let's go ahead and swiv it and get a quick NFL update with Alan. We did have some NFL news for a former UCF player. So Alan, take it away.
Talked a lot about last week all the guys that either got signed or invited to camp. So we had one more camp invite, and that is linebacker Ethan Barr. He was invited by the Tennessee Titans. He was a heralded transfer for us. When he came in from Vanderbilt, I don't know, he did decently, I guess, for us. It was a little slow, but definitely did okay. I think he was like 1 or 2 in tackles on the team last year. So he got invited by the Titans. So congratulations to Ethan. We'll see how it plays out for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good run stopper. He was not, to your point, he could be taken advantage of when it came to lateral speed or having to cover someone who was leaking out into, the 10 to 20 yard range for a quick pass. He was not a good pass defender. And if the running back got past the first level there, Ethan Barr wasn't going to run him down. But he was a smart guy, and I'm hoping the best for him. I think his speed is the thing that's going to hurt him the most. And he was always. I met him a few times. He seemed to be a good kid. So I wish him nothing but the best when it comes to that. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it one more time. We're talking about other UCF news, and there's a lot of Scott Frost articles and things coming out this week. One, we got a view into his contract. Two, there was an ESPN article by Andrea Adelson, who, as many of you know, was local and was pretty involved during the 2017-2018 run. So she has a soft spot for UCF sports. Her husband was local. She wrote a really, really good article that was kind of telling on some new information that we thought about, but didn't didn't really know the details of. And there were some nuggets that were dropped in there. One, Scott Frost talked a lot about how he didn't want to leave, but he had outside pressures when it came to him leaving. I mean, at the time, there was the whole story about him crying when he was leaving and, all of that other stuff. And we were all like, okay, you're crying for your, $100 million contract or $50 million contract and going back to Nebraska. But it seems like there was really a tug there. He really wanted a P4 opportunity. And that's the other thing, or P5 at the time, right? Before we had consolidation yet again with the loss of the pack. But Scott Frost, I think him, and he mentioned this specifically in the article, he didn't say when he left, he talked about the natty at the time and didn't really claim it. But then he said this time he was careful to say, we didn't get to win a natty on the field. So still kind of a tip of the cap. And he wanted to, his goal for where we're at right now is to get us competing for championships and or competing in the conference and winning and getting to championships occasionally. So it sounds like, that's realistic expectations. I think the P4 opportunity, the fact that, we went undefeated in 2017 and we weren't going to be able to sniff a chance at playing in a national championship at that time hurt as well. We've got a 12-team playoff now that's coming in. So that was interesting. Another bit of news that was interesting is that Terry Mohajir, we got a little bit of a window into how that whole situation happened with Gus Malzahn, in the sense that Terry Mohajir got a call from Gus Malzahn in November, basically saying that he had the FSU opportunity and he thought that he might take it. It wasn't confirmed, but obviously the Utah game wasn't the final kicker. This was in the works for a little while. He was contemplating basically going back to the offensive coordinator role at Florida State, which he ended up doing. At the same time, after Scott Frost was fired at Nebraska, Terry Mohajir actually called him at that time to gauge his interest to come back as the offensive coordinator under Gus Malzahn. So there was at the time that was all happening, and he was putting together a staff, there were some rumblings on there. Let's bring back Frost. And, I guess Terry Mohajir had the foresight to kind of think about that as well. And it just didn't work out. But, Frost said he wasn't ready. He went and did his recovery from his Nebraska experience on his own, got back into coaching with an NFL team. And then he reached out and he was fired up to take it right away. So there was a lot of little nuggets in there about some details that we didn't know at the time that all of this stuff was going down. We knew that he had contact with Scott Frost and Terry Mohajir had said he had contact with Scott Frost over a period of time, but that's, I guess, when it happened. So really, really interesting stuff on a little bit of the details. I'd encourage you guys, obviously we're just paraphrasing some bullet points there. But it's really, really an interesting article, long article, and a good read. So I'd recommend you guys check that out as well. Did you guys want to add anything else to that from the article?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, all I'll say is this. When you are at a role or a job and you're comfortable with where you're at, your pay's good, environment's good, the people you work with are good, things tend to be a little different. And I do think that a lot of this ease, and I would say calm, right? I'm sure he's working like his hair is on fire. But the reality is, I feel like this is the right place for him, and maybe the right time too, with all this knowledge he's obtained from the Rams and all the other things he's been doing, to see what we really get in the next couple of years. And I like hearing some of these drips and drabs and having these big, main ESPN type of articles. But it goes to show you that in any place, sports, otherwise, when you have the right pieces in the puzzle in the right place, they're all working to the same goal and they're all working together as a team, really good things can happen. And I'm not saying we're going to have a gangbuster year this year. I'm level setting my expectations too. But this is what I'm I'm hoping we get back to the quote the college football within reason that we're used to, and maybe this type of situation might help not only the players but UCF as a whole.
Well, we'll do a preview of what we think of the season, coming up. But I think all of us understand, especially with, the transition in NIL that's coming down the pipe right now. The fact that we're going to rev share, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, and what Terry's comments were on rev share. He did say that he was aiming to, and this is new. He says this is a direct quote from Terry Mohajir. Says UCF's aiming to spend the full $20.5 million, including fully funding football. So even if we don't get the full $20.5 million, I guarantee you that no matter what, football will be fully funded. So next year, we kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel in a bit, or diamond mining, or whatever you want to call it, right? On some of these ads recently, especially when we were filling out the roster with depth pieces. I think next year is when you'll really see that recruiting aspect coming up, especially because Frost had never recruited in the era that we're in now with all of the different things that are going on. So this was his first cycle at that. But the fact that Terry Mohajir came out and said, hey, we're going to spend, in an ESPN national article, we're going to spend the full $20.5 million that's available, and we're going to fully fund football. That's good news, because we hadn't heard that in the past. All we've kept hearing is, hey, we're not quite there yet. We're poor, whatever. You heard me talk about it last week where I said, hey, our budget is higher than it has ever been. And yes, we need to, now that it's out in the open, we need to spend money to compete. But at the same time, you've got the tools. I'm glad he said that, because he had not said that before. So Alan, I know you were starting to say something. I'm sorry that I interjected. And Josh, one last thing on your point. It's been a long time since UCF football has been in the national news. So having a standalone article like this is a good thing for UCF. And we're still getting a lot of traction, marketing traction, out of the 2017 season.
I mean, first, I was just giving Andrea Adelson some props. I mean, she definitely has a soft spot for UCF. I mean, I think every 90% of the UCF articles I've seen in ESPN from 2017 to this day have been her. So I prefer that. She knows what she's talking about. She doesn't call us the Golden Knights. She says UCF instead of Central Florida. She knows what she's talking about when it comes to UCF. So it's one of the few national writers that I feel like does. But I thought the article was interesting. I thought probably about 75% was essentially quotes and information we had already heard before. Wasn't going to say too much about Nebraska, talked about his record there, talked about how, the Rams job reinvigorated him, all these things that, Sean McVay talked him up, that he lived in Scottsdale, all this stuff. So most of it was, kind of information we already had, but I did find some nuggets in there. Obviously what you said about AD Mohajir, that was something that was really interesting, talking about the budget. I did the one quote I found kind of interesting, and it's understandable, but he was very careful to take away any pressure associated with the UCF job and how he performed here the first time. He talked about how basically alluded to that this is not a pressure cooker like other places he's been, aka Nebraska. That's the only other place he's had a head coaching job. But he kind of said that he can kind of do his thing here, relax, which is fine. That's what Gus Malzahn said. That's what he said. But Frost did make a quote saying that really success to him is not really going undefeated and doing all the big things we did with him the first time. It's really that if we can be competitive in the Big 12, from time to time compete for championships and make us more relevant nationally, I think we'll have done our job to help catapult UCF again. I understand the quote, and I understand, obviously, like he even said in the article, there's most regional fans will not expect us to go undefeated again and all that. Completely understandable, very, very rational. But I felt he aimed a little low with just kind of saying, like, basically compete for championships from time to time and make us more nationally relevant. I mean, I those are good goals, but I think you could be a little more lofty. Didn't even mention the playoff. Didn't really mention. I don't know. I just felt it was a little. Kind of taking the pressure off, and I would have expected, and maybe he would never say this publicly, but I would hope at least that his goals are a little bit loftier than just from time to time competing for a championship. I would hope that we're, really in the mix almost every year when we get to the, he gets us to that point where we're in the mix almost every year. I know it's not realistic to win every year, but I just thought it was, a little bit lower than I expected.
Well, I think they are trying to control the narrative a little bit, especially with the upcoming season, considering where the last season ended up, the last 2 seasons, really. At the end of the day, he said that the goal was competing in the league and winning championships occasionally, right? And so that's a big step up from where we've been, especially when it comes to P5. So if he can get us to that point, that's another springboard to build off of. I thought it was also interesting that the article mentioned that this was him looking and viewing as UCF like the last run in 2017 was a stepping point for us to be able to get our P5 invite. And now he's saying he wants to come back and basically get us to that next level within that P5 growth cycle, right? Or P4. Who knows? It may be P3 soon enough. So I think it was more about that than anything else. I think Scott Frost realizes that, that's basically where we are and who we are. Real quick, I want to shout out to They Call Me Young. Shout out to 2017 Knights, greatest team for now. Trey's in the comments.
Yeah.
He was part of that team until he bailed to go to Nebraska and follow Scott Frost. I got to give him a hard time for it every chance I can.
Yeah.
But shout out to you. They Call Me Young. You're absolutely 100% right. And I love the fact, that you're saying,
for now,
you know what I mean? That's the big thing. And realistically speaking, and Alan, I know you understand this. This is a building. Year and next 2 to 3 years to get us to where we need to be consistently. The NIL stuff and rev share stuff, that'll be a piece of it, but that only gets us to the table where everybody else is. Then it's all about, okay, what are we doing with the talent that we have on the team? And that's where coaching makes a difference, and where everybody was looking at and saying we need to move away from Coach Malzahn. The only thing I'm a little concerned about, I like the people that we brought together and for the coaching staff. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of experience there, but there's a lot of guys that are looking to kind of rehab and go back and get another head coaching job. And so there'll be some turnover a la Gus Malzahn when it comes to that, if and when we find that success. Now, that being said, something that UCF has not been very upfront about recently is contracts. And we did get a look at Scott Frost's contract as well this week. So Scott Frost has a 5-year deal worth around $22 million. Obviously, we're into that first year. He's going to get compensation for the time that he spent up until now. So they'll retro that for this year. And then with the new academic year, they're going to reset that timetable on the contract. Something that's interesting on there, he gets an auto extension with a bowl appearance. So basically, they'll tack on another year, and he'll move from $4 million to $5.025 million with that extra extended year. Right now, his guaranteed compensation is 2025 $3.9 million, 2026 $4.1, 27 it'll be 4.4, 2028 4.6, 2029 $5 million. Now, just so everybody knows, this is something that when it comes to the Big 12 and how this stacks up in the Big 12, he's basically number 3 from the bottom, essentially, when it comes to compensation, with Cincinnati's head coach Scott Satterfield being a little bit lower than that, and Arizona State's coach, who's brand new, that got into the job being below that as well. But they're making a commitment to him, but that kind of goes back to that low bar you were talking about, Alan. For that, he is going to be getting paid a prorated amount of $3.8 million for his work so far through June 2025. He's got a bevy of different bonuses that he can earn to, everything from a non-CFP bowl game to a CFP affiliated bowl game, etc. I really don't want to go through all of that because there's a list of them. The other thing that's important whenever we're talking about UCF coaches or coaches in general is the buyouts, right? How do those work? Gus Malzahn's was not very productive for UCF, although he did do us the favor of taking care of that. So if UCF fires him without cause, 75% of the guaranteed compensation. So basically, if he's fired for performance and he doesn't do anything egregious, we owe him 75% of the guaranteed compensation. However, this is offset based on his new contract. So that means, and it's dollar for dollar, which not all coaching contracts are written that way, but anything he gets paid by his new team will be offset for what UCF owes him. So depending on how that goes, that can either be positive or negative. If Scott Frost leaves, $6.5 million is owed to UCF. If it's terminated before 2026, and then that goes down as the length of his contract goes. So 5.5 the next year, the following 4.5, and then down to 3.5. So that's pretty much the details on his contract. I mean, still, Gus Malzahn was getting paid $4 million a year. So Scott Frost is getting paid about the same, but he has an escalating contract, which makes sense because we'll be getting paid more here soon. So hopefully that moves him up along the cycle, and hopefully he earns some of those bonuses because that would be good for UCF. All right, let's talk a little bit. I want to do a little bit of UCF baseball.
What happened? Like, I know. It just here's the thing.
Do you want me to tell you what happened?
Well, here's my opinion. Sure. I have some thoughts, but let's see if they're close.
All right. So the big thing, just bottom line, this season, what happened? Two things happened. We talked about it a little bit before. One, the closers, but more importantly, if you look at our hitting statistics, our team is really, really good. We were touting that at the beginning of the year. Everybody's above 350, like all this stuff. But because I don't like to say the problem is that we've stranded more people on base than just about anybody in baseball. And that is the problem. We've had in every game that we've had this last weekend, West Virginia, we had more hits and more on base than what West Virginia had. Same thing this past weekend with Oklahoma State. It just, between the pitching and the late closing and the hitting and left on base, and statistically, it's crazy having the highest or second highest hitting percentage in the leagues, depending on which one you look at. But then you look at the rest, and how many runs
conference.
Yeah, we're the lowest in the conference, right? So that's been the problem. We've got good hitters. They're just not putting it together at the right times to get guys across base. A lot of times, a lot of our hitting has been with 2 outs. I mean, a lot of runs we've been scoring have been with 2 outs, right? We just, I don't know if it's the small ball hitting or what, but look at Demis Ross, right? His hitting has been absolutely spectacular for a leadoff hitter all season long, right? Espinal's been a little up and down, but the rest of the guys have been mostly up. So he hit a little bit of slump lately, but we haven't had the power hitters that we've had in the past few years. I think we were missing those to clear the bases, and I think that's been the biggest problem. The base running has been a little suspect too when it comes to steals. But Josh, we talked about this last week. After after losing last week, that was it for me. I thought they were gonna shut down shop, and they basically did and rolled over this past weekend. So Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I coming into the season, and maybe that was the difference. Forget the level of play. We hit the clutch hits in the first quarter of the season, and I noticed that, but I guess it adds up. And I will say this: a couple of months ago, saying there are 12 people that get into the Big 12 Conference Championship in baseball, and we might not make it, was unfathomable to me. And we're close. We're on. I think we're 13th. I was counting out. It's just disappointing, and we know we had a lot of expectations, and last year kind of brought some of that, but it's just disappointing. It is just disappointing, and perhaps it all clicks somehow in the next 2 weeks, but I just don't see it.
Dude, season's over. This team is not going to. I don't even know if they make it to the Big 12 championship game at this point, right? And it's not for lack of talent. They have the talent on the team to win. They absolutely 100% do. They have on paper a better team than they had last year, which almost went to a super regional, right?
Yeah.
If they didn't run into and we talked about it with Rich before the season started. That team at FSU, we had that if we would have gotten that one pitcher out in the second game, that phenom pitcher out, if they wouldn't have left him in for one more at bat, then we may have won and gotten to the super regional with a less talented team.
Yeah.
This team should have performed way better than it did this year. And I don't think it's Rich. I think Rich is just as frustrated as us. So all those people are like, oh, Rich Wallace, blah, 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 blah. It's one, yes, granted, this was the team that he got to put together, right? And remember, he brought in some clutch players last year on short notice from Notre Dame and a few other places that really helped us last year as well. However, this team this is not Rich Wallace's doing. This team, just for whatever reason, has not been able to jive. Now, we do get some of those good players back next year, so we'll be able to build off of that nucleus, whereas last year we pretty much lost everybody. So we'll have some continuity going into next year, especially when it comes to the pitching staff. Saucer came on towards the end of the year. Obviously, Castellanos has been a bright spot for us most of the year. So I think we've got two or three really, really, really good players. And if you haven't watched our shortstop all season, Ben's been talking about it all season long. That guy's a pro prospect, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not drafted after the end of the season. So unfortunately, we'll be losing him. But everybody else, the important players that we have, I think will be back. So, again, tough way, like getting swept at home. Like OSU's the team we beat in everything, pretty much, for whatever reason when we're at home.
I mean, they were 7-11. We're not. They're about the same. They were about the same as we were. So it stinks. Now I just checked on. We basically have to be higher than BYU and Utah in the next 6, and they're playing like the Kansases, Arizonas of the world, and we're playing. Who knows? But we are playing teams that are not that strong. So there is a shot we make it in and take on a 5 seed. But I'm with you. If they could get mentally back, there is a shot. But we'll see.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the pitching staff because you saw the scores went up and down quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
So we did beat UNF 9-3. We got swept by OSU 3-0, and we do play Missouri State next. We play them tomorrow. Well, by the time you guys listen to this, it'll be produced.
If you're not live, yeah.
Yeah, we'll the produced version of it if you're not watching us live, which you should be if you're not. But we'll be playing Missouri State tomorrow night and then move on to our Big 12 game. So hopefully this will be a way for them to clear their heads and get back into the game, because it's tough to lose at home and get swept at home like that and come back without any bad intentions. We do. Ben Stout, by the way, is out next week, or is out this week, but should be back next week. And next week, he has promised us that he's going to finish his review of the basketball players that we brought in. If you didn't catch the first half of that, I'd encourage you to go back and look at that episode or listen to that episode because it was really, really ESPN level stuff, and it makes sense because he's got a lot of ESPN experience. So, all right, let's go ahead and swiv it away from UCF baseball. And I want to give out a little bit of listener love this week. First, we're going to start off with Econ Advisor, who talked to us and mentioned, we talked a little bit about Kobe Hudson and the drops on the show last week. And Econ Advisor popped in a comment. He said, Hudson solved his drop problems last year. It was the previous season he dropped some easy ones. Hudson was stuck on a team without a passer, or he'd have been one of the best in the nation. He'll be a star in the NFL if he stays healthy. Miami got a steal. I hope you're right. I think he's better than what he's shown. He was double teamed a lot. Our response to that, thanks for watching and commenting. His drop rate was over 10% in 2024. His entire career, he never had under a 10% drop rate. It was actually a little bit higher than that. The average last year for NFL wide receivers, the drop rate was 6.7%. He dropped several TDs in 2024. He always seemed to drop like the first one that was thrown to him, and then he would catch like some others. Unfortunately, it really hurt him with scouts, along with his route running and footwork. This guy would, let's be real. We talked about it when Kobe was here, and part of that is the system that Gus Malzahn ran, but he was basically running go routes. His footwork was not great, and his route running was not complicated, and that's were things that he was dinged on as well. Thank you for being part of the family. He never had under 6 drops per season his entire career. We hope he sticks. We will feature your comment on the next show. Thank you. So, I just wanted to bring that up because it is, when you're talking about NFL, we're talking about the NFL, when Kobe Hudson did better when he had someone else that could draw some attention away from him. He really didn't have that last season, right? However, his drop rate, his entire career was never under 10%. It hovered like 10.5 his last season to 12 or 13%, depending on what year you were looking at. You're not going to go very far in the draft if you're a receiver and you have that high of a drop rate. And it's unfortunate because he is talented and he makes some circus catches sometimes where it's like, okay, where's that been, right? But then he makes some boneheaded drops as well. And when the average NFL receiver is at 6.7% and you're almost double that, it's going to be tough for you to get a payday on draft day. So shout out though to Econ Advisor. Thank you for watching and chiming in. Also want to give a shout out to UCF Blackbird on X, who joined the party, and UCF Ozzy. Unfortunately, those of you, we did have some more folks subscribe this week, and you guys are set to private again, so I can't shout you out on the show, but thank you for subscribing. We actually ended last month with over 14,000 views, 17% of which, it was almost 14,500, 17% of which were on TVs. So for some reason, you guys like to watch us on TV, but thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for pushing the show forward. And, we encourage you to continue to participate, whether it's on the live show or whether it's through comments, likes, sharing with your friends. We do this for you guys. We don't make any money off of this, and we appreciate the support. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it one more time. And let's talk about Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week. Sorry, I almost messed that up. Alan, what have you got for us this week?
Botch that one. All right.
Hey, listen, I'm having to produce.
Yes, he's doing a lot of work.
Personality of the show, come
doing
on.
good. You're doing good.
All right, you're forgiven. Now, okay, so obviously not much going on right now in terms of stats with football or basketball or anything, but started, just because the transfer portal has been so prevalent, over the past month with the window opening back up. I want to take a look at how many UCF players have started and finished their career at UCF since 2023. I know the portal opened up before 2023, but in the last 3 years, I think it's really taken over a lot more than it did in the first couple of years. So just for actually a little context, in 2022, UCF, that was after 1 year of the portal existing, had 8 guys start as UCF and finish as UCF. In 2023, that number went down to 5. 2024, it was also 5. And then, in 2024, it went down to 4. And then this year, there's only 4 players on the team if they end up graduating, don't get injured or anything like that, that have started their career at UCF and finishing it there. So that number continues to drop. So kind of sad that basically about anywhere from 75 to 80% of each graduating class each year is pretty much going to be transfer guys, and the guys that start and finish at UCF is going to probably be 5 or less at most every single year now.
That's nuts.
That's
but
insane.
it's a sign of the times. We expected that, right?
Yeah.
It's,
and Paul Rubelt is one of them. So
yeah,
shout out to Paul Rubelt.
yeah, shout out to Paul Rubelt. RJ
Hollerbox
Hardy.
own Paula Rubel.
What? What did
Hollerbox own.
Oh, Hollerbox zone. Okay.
Fine.
Well, listen, he can lift anybody at Hollerbox above his head, no matter how many clothes he's eaten. And he also does hot sauce specials on the side. So if you want that, talk to Paul Rubel. One quick thing before we get to Josh's take, which we missed last week. I wanted to shout out one thing for baseball. We did get a bit of good news this week. Maybe, right? Because the way that baseball recruiting works is and remember this from the Lovelady era, you'll get a lot of these guys who commit, but then will end up getting drafted out of high school and then they never show up, right? And it's something that every baseball coach deals with. It sucks. But we did get a commitment from Dallas Brooks. Now, Dallas Brooks, why is that important? Dallas Brooks is the number one catcher in the 2025 class. So we had Dylan King, had a rifle of an arm this year. We had Andrew Sundin, great hitter, and was sidelined by, unfortunately, some injuries the last season or so. But he's a 2025 grad. He's a catcher and first baseman out of I'm not going to say this wrong, but Colorado, Maryland. And what's funny is I've lived in Maryland and I've never heard of Colorado, Maryland, so I have no idea where he is from. But he did get the best perfect game grade that you can get for any baseball player at 9. So, it's kind of like the rivals for baseball, right? Perfect game. And he is absolutely a phenomenal player and would be a big, big win for us in recruiting. Now, we talk about NIL, we talk about these transfers, Alan. This may be a situation where it actually helps us in baseball recruiting because a lot of these guys, depending on where they get drafted in the rounds as freshmen, they're not getting drafted in the first, second, third round where they're going to be making all kinds of money, right? They're going to be a high draft round, maybe in the 6th through 9th rounds, which means they're not going to be making as much. So in the NIL era, depending on how much gets left over for baseball after basketball and football, getting guys like this may be, and getting them to stick out of high school may be something that that actually is an advantage for us. So it's interesting to see how that will play out, but it is a commitment from the number one catcher in the entire country, which is a huge deal. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and swiv it again from Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week to something that I couldn't do very well last week. Johnny. Wow.
Johnny.
Josh is sometimes funny.
Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny, because I said Johnny,
God,
not
the
Johnny.
20-year-old will have no idea what that is.
All right, Johnny. I think that's your new nickname. We've got Nobra, now we've got Johnny. All right, Johnny, what have you got for us this week?
All right, so we're going to do a rapid fire one on this. It'll be easy. The answer is more than 0 or not more than 0. The men's tennis team is on an unprecedented run with Bruce Burgess and company over the last 2 years. So prior to these two coming in, did we have more than 0 of these things? I'm going to list 5 of them. You need to tell me how many were more than 0 before they came here. Okay. NCAA second round appearance, national seed.
Well, hold on. Let's do it one by one because
Okay, sure. We'll do one more. Okay. Did we have more than 0 NCAA second round appearances before Bruce Burgess in the last 2 years?
I know we had a first round appearance.
He's only been here for 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm saying
I have
before
no idea, but I'm
the
just
2 years, have we had
I'm gonna-
more than 0 second round appearances in the NCAA tournament?
I know
I'm
we
going
did
to say
women's.
no, less than 0. Or I mean 0.
Less than 0. That was not an option, Alan.
Sorry, I meant 0.
Do not count.
Okay.
It's not a real number. It's an imaginary number in tennis. Let's go with. I'm going to say we had one. I know the under Andy Roddick we had.
Andy Roddick?
Or not Andy Roddick. I'm sorry.
His brother.
His brother. I don't know why I said Andy.
It's because that's all you know. You're
Well,
fine.
I used to know his name. We used to
Yes.
talk about tennis on the podcast, but I'm going to say 1. I'm going to say more than 0.
Okay, so we have Roger up 1-0 in this. You're probably talking about John Roddick.
Yes.
So yes, we had 1 second round appearance. What about national seed? Have we had more than 0 national seeds prior to this 2-year run? Roger goes first.
As individuals or as like the team?
As the team, the men's tennis team, prior to Bruce Burgess, in the last 52 years of men's tennis, did we have more than 0 national seeds?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Okay, it is 2-1. Roger, that is 1 national seed in the last 52 years before this last couple 2 years. Top 10 wins. Did we have more than 0 in the last 52 years? So you get the point here.
I'm going to say no, we did not, because I think I remember this year was our first top 10 win for men's tennis. Alan, I think you're too far away from the mic, bro.
Yeah.
Nope.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can.
Now you are.
So I was saying, wow, 52 years. I'm just going to go by sheer numbers over 1.
Okay, so it's 3-1, Roger. We have had 0
Damn.
top 10 wins prior to Bruce Burgess being on the team. What about ITA Indoor Championship appearances? That's kind of like this mid-season championship that happens. Alan goes first.
Yes, over.
Yes, over.
Mm-hmm.
Roger?
I'm going to say yes as well.
You're both wrong. 0 in the last.
I almost went with 0.
Okay, and then wins over Florida outside the last 2 years in the 52 years of the program prior. Do we have more than 0 wins over Florida?
I'm going to say yes on this one as well, because I seem to remember with John Roddick we had one back then. All right, Alan's got the
mic is Underwater. It's kind of like mine. The answer is 0. We had 0 wins over Florida in the 52 years prior to Bruce Burgess being our coach. This is what has happened in the last 2 years. We've had 2 NCAA second round appearances, and I'll talk about further from there. We've also had 1 national seed, so that was in 2 years. Have done that. 4 top 10 wins in the last 2 years, not 0. The first ITA Indoor Championship and advanced to the quarterfinals. We kind of got smacked after that, but pretty darn good. 2 wins versus Florida. We have not lost to Florida since we have had Bruce Burgess as a coach. And we've one I did note, the most wins in a season we had since in the 52 years prior to our new coach was 22. We have 23 this year. So tennis is on an absolutely unprecedented run. It's amazing. Thank you UCFnights.com for help with this one. But it is nice to be. I know it's outside of the top.
What you're saying is we're a tennis school now too.
Yeah, the tennis, both tennis. Listen, the women did really well this year too. They did pretty strong too. The men's tennis team is still playing, and we'll get to that when we talk about sports that Alan does not watch.
Yeah, the other nice thing to kind of say about that too, when we were talking about John earlier, he came to us from OU, and that was quite a coup when we got him, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, one thing that most people don't realize is that the men's and the women's teams, you have like a John up at the top, and then you have individual coaches focusing on one team or the other. So it's almost like having a George O'Leary, where you have like the football head coach being the AD kind of situation, right? Because Burgess will be focusing on one team and working with that one team, but he's in charge of both, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is Bruce Burgess and Aloft, if we want to be more formal about it. But I want to just use one name for now. It is nice to be proud of any team at UCF and how far both tennis teams at UCF have gone in the last couple of years is just really impressive.
Yeah, that program's been building, and a big part of that was the ITA.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the facilities plan is to build some more on-campus stuff, because we are hosting this year, right? So having those facilities on campus should help in the future as well with that to generate some more revenue for regionals. So that's a huge deal. We do have some other good news. Obviously, we've got the Coxswain karaoke to talk about. It's not going to be rowing anymore. It's Coxswain karaoke. You just killed it with that.
Listen, you get me on a boat. I'm on a boat.
Yeah. And we also have softball did some good things to talk about here recently as well. So as you alluded to, let's go ahead and get into the other sports that Alan does not watch.
Look, I try to throw up the softball transition. It was great. All right, so as you know, men's tennis, they beat Miami and they beat the number 29 Gators 4-1 each to win the Orlando Regional, and they advanced to their first ever round of 16. So not only in the first 54 years of this program have we never gotten to the first round of 16. That team has also gotten us there too. And this is interesting. We get number 2 TCU at home in their home at Fort Worth. So we split the season series. It wasn't the series. We played them in the championship, but we beat them in the championship to get to the final round. So we have recent history within the last 30 days of beating them. So that's going to be interesting. A lot more on the line this time, and that is going to be on May 10th at 1 p.m. So this is looking promising. We talked about the women's tennis team. I'm not sure if we talked much about this last week, so I'll just remind you, they beat Furman in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, they lost to the home team. They were playing NC State at NC State, number 12 NC State, and they lost 1-4. That was their last game of the season, and still a really, really good season, ranked most of the year, got past the first round of the NCAA tournament. Definitely a great tennis year all around for our UCF Knights. as you're talking about softball. So a fun fact on this, and that'll be at the end. Softball's now 32-21-1. They're 12-12 in conference now. They brought out the broom at Kansas last week up in Lawrence. They started with Isabella Vega's first no-hitter and like 7-0 no-hitter. It was awesome. And they won 5-4 and 8-6 to take out the sweep of Kansas. So the Knights have won 5 of their last 6 conference games, and the only game they lost was the one I attended. So I should be not attending any games anymore.
Well, we've been saying that in every single sport, every single year, Josh,
like
and we still end up losing because you show up.
Now, listen, maybe it was the 2 Australians I was with, but they actually had fun baking in the sun with me. In that game, and I'll just talk about that in a hot minute, literally, in that game versus Houston, I have no idea what happened. Like, every pitcher was just out of her mind, not hitting anything. Like, every single inning, Houston had 2 people on base, and someone on the plate got hit. Like, 6 out of 7 innings. It was.
I remember the text you sent, and she just nailed somebody in the derriere.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was the freshman from New York, and I was like, no, come on. It's like no, but yeah, she like full right on glute. You heard it. I felt bad. But yeah, it was every inning. It was bad, and they won 5 out of the 6 when I wasn't there, so that was great. So 2 things are happening. One, there seems to be a bit of a full court press for at-large bid. If you look at UCF softball's X account, Twitter account, whatever. RPI. We beat a ton of people in the top 10, in the top 5. Like, they're really, the numbers seem to fit, and we will see. But they're definitely putting on the PR full court press of trying to get that at-large bid.
And I will say this to Eric Lopez, who is known not just within UCF circles, but nationally, and is a bracketologist for softball. He expects that we should be able to sneak in with an at-large bid as well because of the strength of that RPI. I think it's 29th now. It was up to 26, but I think it's 29th now because some of the other teams lost. But he expects us he expects us to sneak in there as well. So if you are interested on any news in the circle, definitely follow Eric Lopez. He's one of our guys. He's our main guy for softball. He's done a lot of volleyball as well. He's a great listen, and he has a memory that is for stats and things that are just phenomenal, and he makes it very, very entertaining.
Yeah, I won't lie. I was sitting right underneath where his booth was, and because we weren't doing well, it was kind of quiet. I was kind of hearing in one ear kind of the commentation of what he was doing live while I was watching it live, so it was kind of interesting to hear it in that context. But yeah, I won't be going back to a game this year. So we can help our cause with getting into the NCAA tournament as a number 7 seed. We are playing the number 10 seed Utah this Wednesday on May 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We have not played them this year, so who knows? The winner plays Arizona on Thursday, and we did take that series in Tucson, so you never know. We might be able to do our best.
I will say this: Arizona is always a tough team. They were highly ranked when we played them early this season. They're one of the royalty when it comes to softball, right?
Oh, 100%. That's why when we won that series, we're all like, "Oh, this is going to be a good season." And truth be told, for the composition of this team, for the depth of freshmen and sophomores, with a mix in of some seniors doing some good work, it's
a very young team.
Great job.
We talked about it, like middle of the season, like the hitting kind of slump, but you're seeing players like Aubrey Evans really come alive. Our power hitting has kind of come back. We've been getting a lot of the ladies on base, but then haven't really been able to clear them for a bit there. They had a little bit of a slump. The pitching has been on point. We really have 3 really, really solid pitchers, 2 really, really strong aces, and one that's a freshman that's going to do well next year. So I expect, I expect big things. This is going to be a team that has done well and seems to be like peaking at the right time. When you watch NFL teams, when they get to playoff time, my Bengals have been a great example of that in years past, where they've had a pretty average season and then turn it on in the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl. Right. This is kind of what this team has been doing. They've also been doing it behind clutch hitting. So they've been behind. They were behind. Against Kansas when they were playing Kansas, and won it in the late either 6th or 7th innings by the hitting and getting ahead of Kansas. So this team has matured from a hitting perspective. They don't seem to give up, which is a good thing, and they've got pretty solid pitching. Usually, if you have one good pitcher, you can do something in the NCAA tournament. If you have two really good pitchers and one decent one with Felton and and everybody coming back this year, this team could surprise a lot of people because their hitting is coming on right at the right time for the postseason.
Yep, no, I 100% agree. And even in the game I was at, the hitting was there. The clutch hitting was tough, and the pitchers couldn't get out of their own way. They went through like 3 or 4.
It's you, Josh.
Yes, it's all me because I'm laying down drag bunts. So and there's still a few more.
Somebody's getting a little testy.
No, I'm not getting testy. It's always my fault. So we have a couple more things going on. So again, rowing. Yes, rowing was on Lake Pickett yesterday against Miami, and this is all I need to say about rowing. Every single boat crossed the line in first. Every boat.
It's phenomenal. And they phenomenal. I did bring up how they performed in Texas last week, Josh.
Okay.
So you know. But
thank you.
I mean, this team, what they did at Texas, they're competing against the perennial, winners between Texas and Stanford and all of these other boats that they have in the water, and they've been placing right in the middle, the top of the middle, right, as far as the boats are concerned, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, somewhere around there. But consistently, and I love that you pointed this out, every single boat across the finish line. Every single boat, normally you'll have a few boats that are better than others. Every single boat has been at that high level. So that bodes well for this team as they row their way through the season and towards the NCAA championship. So there you go.
Very good. Well, before we get to that championship, and it'd be very odd if we weren't there, the women are going to go south of Orlando to Sarasota to kick off the Big 12 championship May 17th and 18th. So in a couple weeks here. And last but certainly not least, lots of sports we don't talk about normally. Women's golf. They are currently number 8 in the Charlottesville Regional. Again, this is a live show, so this is as of Monday, Cinco de Mayo. They tee off tomorrow at 8:55 a.m. on hole 1. So this is the way it works now. The top 5 teams for each of these regionals go on to the main championship. And the top individual not on an advancing team also advances. So I think we have someone who's, 43rd, 42nd, somewhere around there right now in that area. So, 5 teams, maybe if you get in the 20s or 30s at the end of the day, maybe we get someone in. Or if the team rises and catches up with South Carolina, who's like, I think they're 14 back or something right now. It's not too bad. So we'll see what happens and see if the women's golf team can get to the NCAA championship.
And, the women's golf team has been a consistent regional participant as well. One of the things, we talk about is the other sports. Obviously, the revenue sports carry a lot of weight, as they should. However, we talked about how good rowing has been. Obviously, Coach Bear has been great for UCF baseball. UCF baseball, yes, UCF softball, and women's golf and tennis have been really, really good the last few years. So if you're not paying attention to those sports and you're a UCF fan, I know it's not for everyone, but cheer on your Knights when you can. I think we'll close with this. I went to Savannah this past weekend for the first time, and for those of you, if nobody's been to Savannah, I definitely recommend going. but to kind of give you a little bit of reach, and this is like an introspective of how far we've come in a very short amount of time, right? So I went to Savannah. I was greeted by the bellhop there who had was loading up our luggage and stuff, and he was a guy from California, who didn't know much about college sports, but he knew about UCF, and he knew. He said that there were 4 other UCF fans that were staying in the hotel wearing their gear at that time in Savannah, right? So then after that, I hop a boat because we were staying on an island to cross over to the Riverwalk where all of the happening stuff is, right? And we get on this ferry boat, and I'm starting to walk down the plank, and then all of a sudden I hear "Charge on" randomly, right? And I look around and I'm like, what? And I said, "Go Knights," right? So that was there. And then when we crossed to the riverfront, I got 3 more of those over the next 2 days. And when I went to the stores that they had there, they had the markets there. Usually when you go to places like that, especially as far north as Savannah, Georgia is, right on the border with South Carolina, you don't see a lot of UCF stuff. But I went to the market, and I got myself a set of brand new mahogany UCF engraved coasters because I did have a metal set and a Christmas ornament. So my point with that is that had that happened, or had I made that trip maybe 8-10 years ago, that would not have happened. And it was funny because the person I was with, my girlfriend, and when I was with her, she was then there were more instances of it, right, where you saw different people. She's like, UCF's everywhere. She's from Canada, right? And so she's like, UCF's everywhere. I'm like, okay. So even she recognizes that it's not normal. You weren't seeing Georgia people doing that. You weren't seeing South Carolina people doing that. So make sure you're loud, make sure you're proud. As much negativity as we've talked about with basketball season and all of this stuff, UCF still growing. UCF still a growing brand, is something you should be proud of, to wear the black and gold every day, and not the New York hat on our podcast, Josh. Yeah. All right. We'll end it there. I want to thank everyone for following, subscribing, tell your friends, make sure you're, thank you for 14,500 views. We were just a hair short. Hopefully we'll be able to do that for May as well. It'll be a little bit longer of a month. But that's huge growth for us, and we appreciate all of your support. Make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're sharing, tell your friends. We are entertaining at times. And Josh, if you wanna, start your random babble.
It's gonna be May. Yeah, I was in Savannah about 10 years ago, and none of that was there. No, I mean, none of it. I love Savannah too. Great for haunted ghost tours. Great food. It's a really cool place. But I mean, there was, and I went with like 5 other couples from UCF in this like huge mansion of a house. We saw nothing in the markets. The markets were fun. We didn't see that. So you're 100% right. This is new, and it's also this really cool thing where most of the people who are UCF fans went to UCF, and that's becomes part of the thing. We know we've been there. Maybe we have some t-shirt fans, but we all know the struggle. So I agree with you, and it's glad to see that as many places as possible.
And on that note, we'll end it there. Unless, Alan, have you been to Savannah too? And do you have any Savannah stories?
Actually went during COVID. Me and my wife and 2 other couples drove up actually from South Florida. We actually went to Charleston, South Carolina first, and then on the way back we stopped in Savannah for 2 nights. And yeah, it was I liked it. It was cool. It was really hot out, but I'm used to that. And no, it was a nice little town, pretty good food, cool culture. So I liked it. Definitely a cool place to visit, I think, with a spouse or significant other.
It's definitely a couple's place to go, right?
Yes.
Definitely will say that. I will also say to the Tourist Bureau of Savannah, Georgia, 1, you did it right, but 2, I will give you my Venmo account if you'd like to contribute to my next trip there. All right. With that being said, go Knights and
Charge on.
Charge on. There we go. See,
wow.
it's the
Wow,
improv training. It's the improv training. I just have to wait and look, but it might be his internet.